I think a lot about how terrible my life seemed during certain seasons. I would write down a goal, attempt to do it, get frustrated, and then slowly just quit over time. And it was always this like slow burn. And during this time, this just seemed normal. I was earning my stripes in terms of failing. After all, isn't that what every person who touts on social media about achievement is talking about? Failing is the way to success, right? But I had this whole view all wrong. I would go onto YouTube or Google, type in how to get jacked or how to get shredded or how to make money online every couple of days, start researching a new method to try it, and then try it for a day or two and then quit. And this was an endless cycle over and over and over. And I would see the abundance of opportunities and methods as an excuse to quit one and jump onto the next, all the while I was creating self destructive habits along the way, making it okay to quit before really giving it a good effort in a solid amount of time. And I see so many people continue to do the same thing. And I know this because I'm not that special. So I know other people struggle with this. And it raised copious amounts of questions for me. And I never was able to really get to the bottom of it. People start something, they experience some form of an obstacle or setback, get frustrated, and quit because either, it's not my thing, or because it's too hard or frustrating and I feel like an idiot. And I've still been doing decent, or I was still doing decent in my corporate career, at least in terms of like building skill sets, connections, and all that. But I was still, and sometimes still am, just miserable. But recently, I had a very small everyday incident happen and everything just kind of clicked for me. Me and my girlfriend, every single Thursday night, we watch a TV show together and we have that time slotted out. But the caveat is, I am absolutely religious about my bedtime. So we cannot start this show any later than 8 o'clock. So what happens is my girlfriend's coming home from work and she gets home and she's like, crap, babe, my tire is very low and I need it filled. And so, me being the guy that I am, I offer, hey, I'll run down and do that for you if you just kind of get started on dinner. So I go down to the gas station to fill up her tires, and I get there, and one, I have to wait for somebody else to get done. And of course, this person's obviously taking their sweet time, and so I'm getting a little bit frustrated because time's ticking. We basically only have about an hour and a half before we have to be sitting there starting the show. So finally, person comes out. I go in. I start to air the tires up, and then I realize there's no tire gauge. So again, a little bit frustrated, go in to try to buy one at the gas station. They don't have any more left. So I go back out, already a little frustrated. I have to do the whole, air up the tires, look into the car, see if the light went off. So it looks like whack-a-mole if you're sitting inside of the car. So I get all the tires aired up, and then I start heading home. I get a call. Hey, we don't have whatever it was for dinner. So now I have to go to the store and even more time. And at this point, I'm getting a little bit irritated because the week had already been stressful enough. And so I just want to be able to sit down and have a nice, relaxing night. So I have to go to the store and get back. Time's ticking. We only have about 25 minutes. So I'm in there frantically, doing my thing, getting dinner ready. And eventually we get it done, right? So we fix dinner and then we go to sit down to start the show. And I look down and my thumb is covered in blood. It looks like it's gushing. And so, of course, it hurts like a bitch. But then, something clicked for me after the fact, after I get it all cleaned up. And I noticed, how many times are you walking around through your day to day and you look down and you got a bruise and you don't even remember how it happened? And then, I know other people have had similar instances where they notice a cut that they didn't notice, and all of a sudden it starts hurting when you actually see it. And, this triggered something in my mind where it's like, holy shit. When you have a goal that you are so focused and locked in on getting, you don't ever notice the pain or the setbacks. And so it got me thinking about all of the times that I've tried so many different methods and, the shift that happened, because I've always enjoyed making content, but I've always been so self-critical. And I realized forever, I was focused on everything I wasn't and everything that was going wrong, rather than focusing solely on the goal and just doing everything I can on a day-to-day basis in order to get there. So, are you saying that I'm not focused on a goal, Drew? No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying your mind is just focusing on the things going wrong. And the truth is, until now, that is a very valid excuse. And it's because of how our minds are wired. Our minds are wired to preserve our current sense of self. It seeks homeostasis and balance because changing your mind or changing how you see the world requires a ton of energy for the brain. And the brain's whole goal is to conserve as much energy as possible. So typically it wants to do everything it can to keep you alive in terms of your sense of self. And this is why it's important to develop a strategy for keeping all of your attention on the goal rather than the path to get there. Even though we have to do stuff and follow certain paths and systems to get to a goal, if we keep our eyes up and on the goal, it at least gives us hope, which is a powerful motivator, and it is the one thing that keeps people pushing through the hardest shit. Martin Luther King Jr., hope is what kept him pushing through despite all of the setbacks. JFK, any great leader, Winston Churchill through World War II, hope is what kept them going. The mark of a person who is in control of consciousness is the ability to focus attention at will, to be oblivious to distractions, to concentrate for as long as it takes to achieve a goal and not any longer. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is the originator of what we now know as flow. And he discovered when it came to happiness and achievement and contentment in life, the mark of a person who is able to achieve whatever it is that they wanted came down to their ability to stay solely focused on the goal and not let anything else take away that person's attention from it. And so once I internalized that, I came up with a little process that, works really well for me, and hopefully this will really work well for you. And I've been able to utilize it very well for my fitness goals, as well as like my content creation goals, my goals at work and money goals as well. So step one is we have to start with the proper expectations that some things are going to suck and you aren't going to feel good all the time doing it. And a lot of times what knocks us off is the disconnect that we have with certain expectations whenever we start a new venture. So we assume that everything will go exactly how it plays out in our mind. And so my advice and the things that I did is just assume that you do not have any clue of what's going to happen, and it's going to go entirely different than how you think it's going to go in your head. Because if you go in with the theory of, I don't know how this is going to go, but it goes kind of with how you thought, then you're in for a pleasant surprise. But whenever it inevitably doesn't, it'll already be lined up in your mind with that same expectation. So your mind's not going to freak out whenever your outer reality doesn't match how things are in your head. Which from that point, you basically want to write down a goal or something to consistently remind you of that goal. And most of the time, we need to be reminded of what we are striving for more than finding something new to strive for. Because at the end of the day, the goals that we have can probably be condensed into just a couple things, which ultimately, in my opinion, it's like some form of fulfillment and freedom. And so we know there are so many roads that lead to Rome. You just have to keep Rome as the destination and just focus on getting there. And to know where you are going, you have to have an endpoint. And once you have an endpoint, you can look at the map and see what directions you can take. And if, you hit a roadblock along the way, you can just take another path. And so from this point, we want to, step 2, spend conscious time thinking about it every day. Literally set aside 10 to 20 minutes to just think about it and interact with it in your mind. The more that you fill your mind with your goal, the more things that your brain is going to seek out in order to actualize that goal. So our brain wants everything in our outer reality and our inner reality to match up. And this goes back to the idea of the contents of your consciousness that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about. By interacting with it in your mind, you rewire the necessary synapses in order to start seeking solutions to the problems you're having rather than seeking just the problems you're having and ruminating in it. And this isn't necessarily a quick fix. It's going to take some time, but I would argue within 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months, you're going to be a hell of a lot further than if you just continue to do what you're doing now. And either way, that time's going to pass. So you might as well spend that time consistently pushing forward. And then step 3, 5 minutes of acting on the thing. We need action to actualize the results that we want. Despite what the law of attraction and manifestation gurus on YouTube are going to tell you, you have to actually do something about it. The action is what solidifies our identity. Our minds want what we do and how we see the world to align. So if we're doing things in the physical world, even if it doesn't align with the thoughts in our heads at the time, our minds are slowly going to start morphing itself so that the actions we are taking and the thoughts that we have line up. And so a lot of times changing your, how you think about things can be tough. And a lot of times your actions then form the thoughts, and it's an endless loop. So either way, the goal is to get those two things to line up. And 5 minutes is super easy to do. And a lot of times you might think it's a waste of time, but the trick isn't necessarily the length of time. It's the action itself. And a lot of time you're going to end up doing it for more than 5 minutes. And in fact, as I was writing the outline of this entire video and the script, I started with I set a timer for 10 minutes. And I ended up riffing on this stuff for 45 minutes to an hour, and time went by like that. And it felt easy. I actually enjoyed doing it. And this is the power of 5 minutes. So other days, you might stop at 5 minutes just because you just don't have it in you, and that's okay. The goal is consistency over time, and whenever you do this, you are slowly shifting your identity from the person that's focusing on setbacks to being the person that is only focusing on the actions that it's taking to get you to the goal that you necessarily want. And you're going to look back in 6 months and realize how much further you are, because most of the time, these identity changes are really only found in hindsight. At least that's what I've noticed from my experience. So I hope this video helped you out. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. It gives me a lot more content ideas. Contact info in the description if you need any help with anything. But until next time, peace.